When the gates of the Bellmore mansion opened that autumn morning, the mist from the Hudson River rolled in like a quiet secret. The house, 3 stories of white stone, glass, and silence, stood above the water like something that had forgotten how to breathe. A black car stopped at the entrance. From it stepped a young woman, wrapped in a modest grey coat and carrying a single worn-out suitcase. Her name was Layla Hassan, 26 years old, newly arrived from Detroit after years of struggle. Her eyes, though tired, still held that soft courage of someone who refused to give up. Inside, the marble floor echoed beneath her shoes. A middle-aged woman in a crisp uniform approached. "Mrs. Turner, the head housekeeper. You're the new maid." "Yes, ma'am," Layla answered softly, lowering her gaze. "I can start today." Mrs. Turner studied her for a long moment before nodding. "Mr. Bellmore doesn't like noise. The boy, Eli, stays upstairs most of the time. Don't ask questions you don't need answers to. Just do your work and you'll be fine." Layla followed her through long corridors lined with portraits, faces of people who seemed to be watching her with frozen sadness. In one photo, a woman with green eyes smiled beside a man in a tuxedo. The frame was dusted, but the smile felt haunting. Her room was small, tucked behind the kitchen, but it had a window facing the river. As she placed her old Quran on the bedside table, she whispered a prayer under her breath. By evening, she had already scrubbed the dining hall, arranged silverware, and folded linen until her fingers burned. The mansion's silence was almost unreal, except for one sound that stopped her, a child's laughter. She turned. At the far end of the hallway stood a little boy, blonde hair, pale skin, eyes too quiet for his age. He looked at her with curiosity and said, "You're not like the others." Layla smiled gently. "Maybe that's a good thing." The boy tilted his head. "They all leave. You won't stay long." Before she could answer, a voice thundered from upstairs, deep, commanding, "Eli, dinner time." The boy flinched. Layla saw fear flash across his face before he ran off. That night, as she stood by her window, watching the mist rise again, Layla felt something stir in her chest. A mix of unease and compassion. She didn't know it yet, but this house would test everything she believed about truth, kindness, and the price of loyalty. And somewhere above her, behind locked doors, the mansion kept its first secret. The next morning began with the sound of rain against the mansion's tall windows, a slow, steady rhythm that filled the empty hallways like a heartbeat. Layla woke before dawn, wrapped her shawl tighter and stepped into the kitchen. The air smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant. Mrs. Turner was already there, writing notes in a thick black ledger. "You'll take breakfast up to the boy today?" she said without looking up. "He doesn't like to eat with Mr. Bellmore anymore." Layla hesitated. "Is he sick?" Mrs. Turner's pen stopped. "You'll know soon enough." The tray was heavy, eggs, toast, and orange juice arranged with military precision. She carried it through the marble corridor, her footsteps echoing softly. The house seemed to listen. Every painting, every clock, every crystal chandelier watched her move. Upstairs, the hallway ended in a large wooden door slightly ajar. She knocked gently. "Eli," no answer. Only a whisper of wind from the open balcony. When she entered, her breath caught. The room was enormous. Bookshelves from floor to ceiling, a piano near the window, toys scattered on a carpet that looked too perfect to play on. And there, sitting on the floor beside a half-built puzzle, was the boy. He didn't look up when she spoke. "Good morning." "Eli, I brought your breakfast." He was tracing a photo with his small fingers, a photograph of a woman in a white dress, smiling, holding his hand. His mother. Layla realized it instantly. She was beautiful, Layla said softly. The boy's voice was barely audible. "She's gone. Daddy says she went to the sky." Layla knelt beside him. "Sometimes the sky isn't as far as we think." He looked up for the first time. His eyes were full of sadness, too heavy for a child. "Do you miss someone too?" She hesitated. "Yes, my mother. She died when I was 16. Eli nodded as if he understood everything. "Then you can sit here with me. People who miss someone shouldn't eat alone." That moment, two lonely souls sharing silence over breakfast, was the first spark of warmth in that cold house. Later that day, while cleaning the library, Layla heard raised voices from downstairs. She froze near the banister. "Mr. Bellmore, please," a man pleaded. "Just make sure the reports are sealed," came the furious reply. It was the same deep voice that had called for Eli the night before. Layla saw him through the reflection of the glass cabinet. Edward Bellmore, tall, elegant, eyes dark with exhaustion. A man who looked like he had once been kind, but forgot how to show it. He slammed a folder onto the table. "If the press gets wind of this, it'll destroy everything." The other man left quickly, closing the door behind him. Layla stood frozen, heart pounding. What kind of business was this man involved in that needed to be sealed? As she turned to leave, she noticed something else. A torn photograph lying near the bookshelf. Half of a woman's face. The same green eyes from the portrait in the hallway. Someone had ripped it in anger. That night, Eli came to her small room, holding a book. "Can you read to me?" he asked. Layla smiled and sat him beside her on the bed. The rain hadn't stopped. Thunder murmured outside. She read softly from the secret garden, and before long, the boy's head rested on her shoulder, fast asleep. For a moment, she let herself imagine this peace was real, that she belonged here, that the mansion could become a home. But as she looked out the window toward the dark river, she saw a light flicker in one of the locked rooms upstairs, a faint blue glow, like a television left on, except no one was supposed to live in that room anymore, and in the reflection of the glass, for just an instant, she thought she saw the silhouette of a woman in white, standing still, watching her. The storm had passed by dawn, but the mansion still felt drenched in its silence. The river shimmered under a pale sun, and the branches outside Layla's window tapped gently against the glass, like fingers asking to be heard. Layla didn't sleep much that night. The image of that faint figure in white, the silhouette standing near the window in the forbidden room, had rooted itself in her thoughts. Maybe it was a reflection, she tried to tell herself. Or maybe just her imagination. But deep down, something told her otherwise. When she went downstairs to prepare breakfast, Mrs. Turner was there as always, but her face looked oddly pale. "Rough night?" Layla asked quietly. The older woman didn't look up from her ledger. "This house never sleeps," she said flatly. "You'll learn that soon enough." Eli entered the kitchen, still in his pajamas, dragging a stuffed bear by one arm. He smiled when he saw Layla. "Can we go outside today?" The rain stopped, Mrs. Turner frowned. "The master doesn't like Eli leaving the property." Layla crouched to his level. "Maybe we can stay by the garden gate, just to see the flowers." After a moment's hesitation, Mrs. Turner sighed. "Fine, but don't go near the west wing." Layla didn't understand why that particular wing was off limits, but she nodded. The garden was wide and quiet, bordered by iron fences draped in ivy. The air smelled of wet soil and roses. Eli ran between the hedges, laughing softly, his hair catching the morning light. Layla followed, smiling for the first time in weeks. For a brief moment, she forgot she was just a maid. She forgot the secrets behind those walls, until Eli stopped suddenly. He was staring at the west wing, an old section of the mansion half hidden behind vines. A single window on the top floor was cracked open. "That's her room," he whispered. "Whose room?" "My mom's." Layla felt her throat tighten. "Eli, your mom's not... She's not gone," he interrupted. "I still hear her at night. Sometimes she sings." Before Layla could respond, Mrs. Turner's sharp voice cut across the yard. "Eli, inside. Now!" The boy flinched and ran, leaving Layla standing by the flowers, staring at that window. That afternoon, she decided to clean the west hallway, even though it wasn't assigned to her. Curiosity gnawed at her. The further she went, the older everything became. The marble turned to dusty wood, and the light dimmed. She noticed old photographs on the walls. Edward Bellmore with a young woman, laughing in a garden, holding a baby. Then another, the same woman standing on a balcony, her face shadowed. At the end of the hallway was a locked door. The brass handle was cold under her fingers. She could smell faint perfume, something floral and ancient. She pressed her ear against the wood. Nothing. Then a faint sound, like humming. A woman's voice, soft and distant, singing an old lullaby. Layla stepped back, heart racing. It couldn't be. The sound faded, replaced by the creak of the house settling. That night she gathered her courage and spoke to Mrs. Turner. "There's someone in the West Wing." I heard. The older woman's face hardened instantly. "Don't you ever say that again. Do your work and keep your eyes down. That room is locked for a reason, but Eli—" "Enough, Miss Hassan." Mrs. Turner slammed her ledger shut. "You think you're the first maid to hear things here? They all start curious, and they all end up gone. If you want to keep this job, you'll stay quiet." Layla didn't sleep again that night. The house groaned around her, whispering secrets through the vents. From somewhere upstairs came a faint knocking, slow and deliberate, as if someone was tapping from inside a wall. She sat up, clutching the blanket. Then she heard Eli's voice in the hallway, frightened. "Layla?" She rushed out and found him standing by the stairs, shaking. "It's her," he said, pointing upward. "She's calling me." Layla wrapped her arms around him. "It's just the wind, sweetheart." But when she looked up toward the staircase, her breath froze. At the top landing stood a woman, pale as moonlight, hair long and tangled, wearing a torn white nightgown. Her eyes were hollow, yet somehow full of grief. She stared directly at Layla. Then in the blink of an eye, she was gone. Layla's knees almost gave out. Eli buried his face against her chest, sobbing. "I told you she's still here," he whispered. "Mama doesn't like strangers." From the darkness above, a door creaked open and slowly closed again, by itself, downstairs. The clock struck midnight, and the mansion exhaled, as if relieved that someone had finally seen the truth it had been hiding all along. Morning arrived pale and cold, the kind of morning that pretends to bring peace but hides the residue of the night. Layla hadn't slept. Every creak, every sigh of the mansion felt alive. She kept replaying the image in her mind. The woman in white, the hollow eyes, the silence that followed. When she went to the kitchen, Mrs. Turner's expression told her everything. She looked as though she hadn't slept either. "You heard it too," Layla said quietly. The housekeeper's hand froze mid-air, gripping the coffee pot. "There's nothing to hear," she said sharply. "And you'd best forget whatever you think you saw." Layla lowered her voice. "Mrs. Turner, I saw her on the staircase." The older woman turned slowly. "Then you'd better start praying, Miss Hassan. Because if you saw her, it means this house has chosen you." The words clung to Layla all day. The afternoon sun poured through tall windows, lighting up the mansion's dust and secrets. Layla moved through her chores automatically, polishing silver, wiping glass, folding linen, but her mind was elsewhere. She caught herself glancing toward the west hallway every few minutes, as if it called her name. Eli didn't appear for lunch. When she asked Mrs. Turner, the woman simply said, "He's with his tutor." But Layla could sense unease. The house was quieter than usual, the kind of silence that listens rather than rests. She finally gathered courage after dusk. The mansion was dim, its chandeliers flickering softly like dying stars. She climbed the stairs with a candle in her hand. The flame trembled, as if sensing what lay ahead. The west hallway smelled of old perfume and damp wood. She followed the sound, faint, rhythmic. Not humming this time, but something else. A whisper. A voice, murmuring words too soft to understand. Her hand shook as she reached the locked door again. This time, she noticed the keyhole glinting faintly. She knelt and peered through. At first, nothing, only darkness. Then movement, a pale figure pacing slowly back and forth. The hem of a white nightgown brushed the floor. The voice hummed that same lullaby she'd heard days ago. Tender, sorrowful. The kind of song a mother sings to a child she can never hold again. Layla gasped and stumbled back, nearly dropping the candle. The door creaked open by itself. A gust of cold air swept out, smelling faintly of lilies and something metallic, old blood perhaps. The room beyond was lit by the faint glow of a single lamp. She stepped inside. The walls were covered with faded wallpaper, the bed neatly made, as if its owner might return at any moment. On the vanity lay a silver hairbrush, a perfume bottle, and a photograph. Edward Bellmore with the same woman smiling. The woman in white. Beside the photo was a newspaper clipping. Tragedy at Hudson Estate. Mrs. Bellmore's mysterious death under investigation. Layla's pulse raced. She scanned the text. Drowned in the river behind the house. Ruled accidental. No witnesses. A soft sound made her turn. The door had closed behind her. "Who are you?" whispered a voice. Layla froze. The woman in white stood by the window, her bare feet leaving no sound on the floor. Her face was pale, lips bluish, hair clinging to her cheeks as if still wet. Layla couldn't speak. "I'm just the maid." The woman tilted her head. "He keeps lying. He told the boy I went away. But he knows I didn't leave." Layla's voice trembled. You're Eli's mother." The woman's eyes softened for a heartbeat. "My boy," she murmured, tears forming. "He still hears me, but he's not safe." "None of you are. What happened to you?" She stepped closer, her presence cold, her words almost human. "He took everything. My voice, my truth, my life." Layla wanted to ask more, but suddenly the door flung open. Edward Bellmore stood there, his face white with fury. "What the hell are you doing here?" he roared. Layla stumbled back. "Sir, I heard someone. There's no one here." His voice cracked like thunder. He seized her arm, dragging her out of the room. "You're trespassing into private quarters." She twisted free. "Mr. Bellmore, please, there's something in that room." "A woman." He slammed the door shut. "You will not speak of this again." His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Do you understand me?" She stared at him, breath shaking. "You saw her too, didn't you?" His eyes flickered just for a moment, fear beneath the anger. Then he turned away. "Get out," he muttered. "Pack your things and leave tomorrow." Layla walked back to her room in shock. Her hands were still cold from the ghost's touch. As she closed her door, she heard soft footsteps in the hallway, small ones. Eli stood there, clutching his bear. His eyes glistened. "You saw Mama, didn't you?" he whispered. Layla knelt beside him, trembling. "Yes, sweetheart, I saw her." He nodded slowly. "She says Daddy hurt her." Layla's breath caught. "What?" Eli's voice dropped to a whisper. "She says he's lying." Outside, thunder rolled again, though the sky was clear, and for the first time Layla realized she wasn't just a maid anymore. She was part of a story that the house itself was trying to finish. A truth buried in silence, a sin that refused to stay dead. The next day dawned strangely quiet. Even the birds seemed to avoid the mansion's grounds. The sky was heavy and grey, the kind of sky that warned of storms even when no wind blew. Layla stood by her window, clutching her worn Quran, whispering a prayer under her breath. She had planned to leave that morning, but something inside her told her she couldn't. Not yet. There was a truth buried in this house, one that neither Edward Bellmore nor the ghost of his wife wanted to stay hidden. And Eli, that fragile boy, was caught in the middle of it. Downstairs, breakfast went untouched. The long dining table looked like a stage abandoned after a tragic play, silver plates gleaming, chairs empty. Edward Bellmore appeared late, his face pale, his eyes bloodshot. He looked as if he hadn't slept in days. "Layla," he said coldly, not looking directly at her, "you were supposed to leave." She stood still, hands folded in front of her. "Sir, I can't go. Not until I understand what happened here." His jaw tightened. "You're here to clean, not to understand." "I saw her," she said softly. "Your wife." The color drained from his face. "Enough." "She spoke to me," Layla continued, her voice trembling but steady. "She said you took everything from her. That Eli isn't safe." He slammed his fist against the table. "That's a lie." Mrs. Turner rushed in, alarmed. "Sir, please." Edward turned away, gripping the edge of the table so tightly that his knuckles went white. "You don't know what you're talking about," he muttered. "You don't know what she was." Layla stepped closer. "Then tell me. Tell me what she was." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and for a brief second she saw something behind the anger. Guilt. "She was ill," he whispered. "After our daughter died, she lost herself. She'd walk into the river at night, saying she could hear the baby calling her. I tried to stop her, but she didn't drown by accident, Layla said. Did she? He said nothing. The silence itself was an answer. That evening, Eli refused to eat again. He sat by the window, staring toward the river. She's calling me, he said softly. Mama says she's cold. Layla knelt beside him. Eli, you mustn't go to the river. Promise me. He didn't answer. His small hand gripped hers tightly, but his eyes were somewhere far away. After putting him to bed, she went to the west hallway again. The locked door was slightly open, this time invitingly. The lamp inside flickered as if waiting. Layla stepped in. The perfume lingered stronger than before. On the vanity, a diary lay open, pages yellowed and curling. She hesitated, then began to read. He says I'm sick, that I imagine things. But I saw the papers. The child isn't gone. He sent her away. Layla's eyes widened. She turned the page. He forged the death certificate. Said it was better this way. He said a scandal would destroy the family. But she's alive somewhere. I hear her cry at night. A sharp sound made her spin around. The woman in white stood there again, closer than before. You see now, she whispered. He buried me in lies. Layla's voice trembled. Your daughter, where is she? She was taken, the ghost said, her words echoing like the wind through hollow walls. Hidden in a hospital far from here. I tried to tell the world, but he silenced me. Layla's heart pounded. Why me? Why are you showing me this? The ghost's eyes softened. Because you listen. You see him for what he truly is. Save my boy, before he becomes like his father. And with that she faded, her figure dissolving into mist. Layla rushed downstairs. She needed proof, something real. She searched the study, drawers, cabinets, files, until she found a locked drawer inside Edward's desk. The key was still in the lock. Inside were documents, adoption papers, hospital forms, and one small birth certificate. Name, Grace Bellmore. The date matched the night Edward's wife had supposedly drowned. Tears burned Layla's eyes. The daughter wasn't dead. She was alive, hidden somewhere, and the mother had discovered it. That's why she was silenced. Behind her the floor creaked. Edward stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. I told you to stay out of that room, he said quietly. Layla turned, clutching the papers to her chest. You lied to everyone. You lied to Eli. He stepped closer, eyes cold. You don't understand. She was destroying this family. Destroying it, Layla cried. Or uncovering it. He lunged forward, but she dodged. You killed her, she whispered. He froze. For a moment he looked broken. It was an accident. She was hysterical. She hit her head, fell into the water. Layla backed away. And you let everyone think she drowned herself. He said nothing. Eli deserves to know, she said. His voice turned sharp. If you tell him, you'll ruin him. You'll ruin everything. He grabbed her arm, but she pulled free and ran, down the hall, up the stairs, toward Eli's room. The boy was gone. The window was open, curtains fluttering in the cold wind. Outside, in the distance, she saw a small figure walking toward the riverbank. Eli! She screamed. She ran barefoot across the garden, rain beginning to fall again. The ground was slippery, her breath heavy with panic. At the river's edge, Eli stood still, staring at the dark water. She says it's time, he murmured. No, baby, no, Layla cried, grabbing him. It's not her voice you're hearing, it's her pain. A cold wind swept across the river. The mist thickened, and in it the shape of the woman in white appeared once more, standing upon the water, her arms outstretched. Come back, she whispered. Both of you, Layla felt tears sting her eyes. You can rest now, she said softly. He knows. We all know. The ghost's face changed, sorrow melting into peace. She nodded once, then slowly faded into the fog, leaving only the sound of the river. Eli clung to Layla, crying. She's gone. Layla held him tight. She's free now. Behind them, the mansion's lights flickered. Inside, Edward Bellmore watched from the balcony, his expression hollow. The storm he had built with lies was finally breaking, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled again. Not as anger this time, but as release. Layla knew what she had to do next. She would find Grace. She would finish what the woman in white had started, because some promises, even whispered by ghosts, must be kept. The following morning, the Bellmore mansion no longer felt like a home of marble and gold. It felt like a crime scene that had been pretending to be elegant. The fog over the Hudson had thinned, revealing the full outline of the river where too many lies had drowned. Layla sat beside Eli's bed, brushing his hair gently as he slept. His breathing was soft, calm for the first time in days, but she knew peace could not last, not while Edward Bellmore still ruled over the house with silence and guilt. Mrs. Turner entered quietly. Her face looked older, more fragile. "You shouldn't have gone to the river," she said softly. Layla didn't turn. "If I hadn't, he would have. That child would have followed her voice into the water." Mrs. Turner sighed, then sat down. "You're braver than most, Layla, but you don't understand. This house isn't built only of stone. It's built from secrets, from grief. I tried to protect Eli. I even tried to protect her once." Layla looked at her. "You knew what happened to Mrs. Bellmore, didn't you?" Tears welled up in the older woman's eyes. "I was here that night. I heard them fight. She found the papers, the proof that Grace was alive. She screamed at him, said she'd tell the world. He tried to stop her. She fell, hit her head. I ran to call for help, but by the time I returned, he'd carried her to the river. And you said nothing." Mrs. Turner's voice broke. "He threatened me, said I'd lose everything. And Eli, he was just a baby." Layla took her hand. "Then help me now. Help me end this." Edward Bellmore came down the staircase around noon, dressed in his usual immaculate suit as though nothing had happened. But there was something hollow in his movements. A man slowly realizing that wealth cannot buy peace. "Where's Eli?" he asked, his tone controlled but cold. "With me," Layla said, stepping forward. "He's safe. I told you to leave this morning." "I'm not leaving," she said firmly. "Not until you tell him the truth." Edward's eyes darkened. "You think I owe you explanations? You're a maid. You clean the floors. You don't tell me how to raise my son. Then tell your son why his mother sings to him from the river every night," she said, her voice cutting through the air like glass. He froze. His hands trembled slightly, though he tried to hide it. "You don't know what you're saying. She's not haunting this house for revenge, Mr. Bellmore," Layla said softly. "She's waiting for justice. She's waiting for you to tell the truth, that your daughter Grace is still alive." The words hit him like a blow. His face drained of color. "You found the papers." "I did," Layla said, "and I'm taking them to the police." In an instant, his composure cracked. He lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. "You'll destroy us all!" he shouted. "You'll ruin my son's life." Layla didn't flinch. "Your lies already have." At that moment, a sharp voice cut through the hall. Eli's. "Stop!" Both turned. The boy stood at the top of the stairs, small and trembling but defiant. "I heard everything," he said. "You hurt Mama." Edward's hand fell to his side. "Eli, you don't understand. She didn't leave," Eli cried. "You made her go away." Edward's face crumpled, years of guilt collapsing all at once. He sank to his knees, his voice shaking. "I didn't mean to." "I tried to stop her. She slipped. I thought hiding the truth would save you." Eli took a step back, eyes full of tears. "I don't want your lies. I just want her back." A sudden gust of cold air swept through the hall. The chandelier swayed. The lights flickered. And for one fleeting moment, they all felt it, a gentle warmth, a whisper of peace. The woman in white appeared at the foot of the stairs, her face calm now, her eyes no longer hollow. She looked at Edward, then at Eli. "You can rest now," Layla whispered. The ghost smiled faintly, tears glimmering on her translucent face. "Thank you." She turned to her son. "Be kind, my love. Don't let his sins become yours." Then, as softly as she had come, she vanished into light. Days later, the mansion was no longer filled with silence, but with the sound of restoration. The police took Edward Bellmore away quietly, without spectacle. The papers Layla found confirmed everything: the fraud, the falsified records, the cover-up. Grace Bellmore was found in a small foster home 2 states away. She was 10 years old, bright-eyed, and carried the same green eyes as her mother. When Layla brought Eli to meet her, the boy stood shyly for a long moment before whispering, "Mama said you were lost." Grace smiled and took his hand. "I was waiting to be found." By spring, the mansion had changed. The heavy portraits were gone. The windows were open again. The sound of children's laughter replaced the echo of sorrow. Mrs. Turner retired, leaving Layla in charge. She often stood by the same riverbank at sunset, watching the water shimmer. Sometimes, when the light was just right, she thought she saw a reflection, a woman in white. Smiling from the other side, Layla would whisper, "He's safe now." "They're all safe." And the wind would carry back a soft, familiar lullaby, one that no longer cried, but thanked. That night, as the stars rose over the Hudson, Layla tucked Eli and Grace into bed. "Tell us a story," Eli said sleepily. She smiled. "Once upon a time there was a house full of lies, and a mother who loved her children too much to stay silent. And then," Grace murmured, "and then," Layla said gently, "a maid came who listened, and that made all the difference." Outside, the river flowed in silence, no longer whispering pain, but peace. The Bellmore mansion at last was free.